trees today, and I will be demonstrating how to draw architectural trees in plan view. Today I have just a tripod to show you guys how to do it. I'm just adjusting it really quickly. And I have my Union Sketching Co. notebook, which I love those sketchbooks because they're very nice, and I love the spiral books because they lay flat and they're made of vellum. They have a vellum finish on them. So I will be using this mechanical pencil here. My eraser is really worn out. And I will also be using this kind of circle trace. I just find it super easy to do a circle trace and have like that outline, so that it just will be easier and you could just focus on creating the detail of your plan tree later on. So not all of them have to be perfect, obviously, some of them are not fully connected. And then I start with the Sharpie UltraFine Pen. I really like those because they're super cheap. They're like, what, $1 or $2. And for a long time, I really thought it was important to buy expensive supplies, but I find myself actually using the cheaper supplies, and it's just more about what your hand is comfortable with, and just what you feel comfortable with. And when I break these, or when I'm heavy-handed, they really come in handy because they are ultra fine, but they are also easy to replace and super cheap, so I never feel bad about losing them. I also wear gloves because markers, ink always get on my hands. So like I have these art gloves that are just so messy, but they really work super well. The first plan tree has a little bit of texture on the outside, and you just go around the circle. With the second plan tree that I'm doing, I'm just making these little squiggly lines that go around the entirety of the tree. And I think that gives a very simplistic look. And place a dot in the middle. For a trunk, I'm also outlining the edge of the tree to cast a thicker line weight. Usually I use thicker line weights to indicate shadow. And so just doing that in the direction in which the sun is hitting really helps you make the tree more dynamic and less flat. And then that's kind of, me thinking about what design I'm going to do next. I also love using this kind of clear ruler because you can see through to your lines. And I do not really worry about perfection. I worry about proportion. So, if things are not completely straight, nothing in nature is completely straight. Yes, we focus on symmetry, but reality, trees are not perfect. And so with this particular one, I'm drawing the lines, and then I am making this kind of half oval shape that's guided by my lines, and I'm not letting myself slip into perfectionist mode. And then just like highlighting the circle that's beneath that is really good. Yeah. I also love just taking a step back, adding another trunk to my fourth plan tree. I'm also using the symmetry method and just creating those different lines. And you can do as many lines as you want, because every tree is different. And in this case, I'm making kind of different leaves and using the same method, but I'm just making sure that I'm adding more leaves and I'm basing it off of that symmetrical start that I started with, and allowing the tree to become a little bit more organic, if you will. And there you have it. We have a palm-like tree. So I also want to note that when you do these trees, don't feel like they have to be exact. Like I said that before, but these are representational trees. You know, we're doing it by hand, we're not doing it digital. And even with this tree that I'm doing now, once I actually move my hand, I am just making these kind of triangles that, you know, fit that go with the circle on the outside. So I'm making sure that, yes, I'm making the leaves different, but I'm taking the circle and using it as a guide. And when you go back and you practice these trees, they become even better. But you can also just use the general shapes of them and use that as a guide whenever you're doing like a landscape plan. You could just make sure you're very consistent with what tree represents what species. And so for this one, I'm making this kind of like half circle on the tips of each line, and then I'm connecting in between each piece so that it could look like, you know, there are different angles of the tree. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, this is what it looks like when you're just focusing on using symmetry and using proportion and not perfection when you're making your plan trees. And that's super important because we want to make things look realistic. We want our character to come through. And if we wanted perfection, we could have easily used the computer. And now what I'm doing is I'm illustrating, just coloring in the trees. Some people, they like color, some people don't. I am a color person. Like, color is, I'm in love with color. I've actually been told when I was in school that like I used so much color because I was just like, life is full of color. Color is amazing. And so I remember one of my teachers saying to me, you can use color, and you know, he said just use indexical color, like color where it matters. And I like I still struggle today with that. I got the concept, but you know, I'm working on it. And so right now in the corner you can see I use Arteza Everblend art markers. I love these markers. They are not the most expensive, but they also aren't the cheapest markers. What I love about them is that like they come in a 60 pack, and when you put them in the pack, right, they also come with a bag. And you know, you can put all your markers in a bag in one place, and they are alcohol-based markers, which is really great in transferring onto paper. So sometimes they bleed, but they don't really bleed that much. And even with this, like, you know, I'm looking at kind of the shadow that I want to be cast on the side of the tree. I can go over twice with these markers and get a different shade. And so they really layer well. And you know, I just go through and have fun, and I love them so much because they are also dual tip. So one side is a broad tip and the other side is a bullet nib. And so when I'm just going through things quickly, you know, I don't want to whip out watercolor. I don't want to whip out anything that requires cleanup. I am so kind of anti-cleanup. I love a good convenience art supply. And so yeah, I just go through that. And with this one that I'm doing, this kind of like fan palm plan tree, I'm going over the outline of it, and I am just making sure that I create some interest. And how I create interest is sometimes a little different. Like I said, I don't rely on perfection, but I do rely on variation. And I go through and I, make sure that I can at least cast some type of shape that's noticeable. And just make sure that I'm doing that. And that really helps me generate interest in my plan drawings and different things like that. Now with this one, I just literally shade it, go from wide to thin as I go through each piece. This one kind of looks like a little pie. But I'm just I'm not coloring the whole thing, as you see. Like, coloring the whole thing, it works sometime, but you do want to leave like a little white, because if you ever use trees and plan, coloring the whole thing is really a lot. So I just go through it, this one, different things like that. And that's pretty much it.